The second movement we will be discussing is the Greek period. The ancient Greek civilization was obsessed with the human form. They believed that a sound body produced a sound mind, and as a result of this philosophy, the ancient Greeks worked incredibly hard to develop their minds as well as their physical appearance. Sport and physical activities were a major part of their everyday lives. Another aspect of ancient Greek civilization, which was influenced by their focus on man, was their belief in mythology. The Greek gods took human form and displayed human emotions like desire, love, and regret. The human form is the biggest influence in ancient Greek architecture and design during the classic period. During Greek architecture, there were quite a few developments. When analyzing Greek architecture, it is important to note which order the building is. The order refers to the type of column used. In ancient Greece, there are three main orders. The Doric order is the oldest of them, which was a plain square capital. The Ionic order had a scroll-like pattern called volutes. The Corinthian order was a stylized acanthus leaf. You can see that the columns and facades of the buildings were inspired by the post and lintel system developed in the prehistoric time. The Parthenon, designed by Ictenos and Callicrates, was a very influential design during the Greek design period. The Parthenon in Athens stands on a raised outcrop called the Acropolis in Athens. Phidias was responsible for the sculptural elements of the building. The Parthenon is a temple of the Doric order with 8 columns at the facade and 17 columns at the flanks, conforming to the established ratio of 9:4, the golden ratio. This ratio governed the vertical and horizontal proportions of the temple as well as many other relationships of the building like the spacing between the columns and the height. The golden ratio is considered the most proportionally appealing rectangle, and the ratio can be found in nature like in the spiral shape of a shell. The Parthenon is made from marble and is divided into 2 sections, one housing the cult statue of Athens, the patron goddess of Athens, and the other the treasury. There are 46 Doric columns on the outside of the building. Its massive foundations were made of limestone, and the columns were made of pentelic marble, a material that was utilized for the first time. The question is, how does Greek architecture benefit society? The Greeks were the first to work with perfect proportions like the golden ratio, which benefited society within perfectly constructed architectural structures. The Greeks developed the decorative element to the post and lintel system through their classical orders. Society benefited from it in an aesthetic way. The Greeks started using marble in their architecture. Marble was a new building material that now could be used. The Roman period. As the Roman Empire grew, so did the cities within, and as a result, engineering and design became important disciplines. Moving water hundreds of kilometers, roads, sanitation and sewers all represent Roman ingenuity. Greek structures like the Colosseum, Pantheon, triumphal arches, amphitheatres, aqueducts and bathing complexes were physical representations of the superior Roman design and construction style. The design characteristics associated with Roman design included functional, amalgamated, imperialistic strength, monumental arches in buildings, gigantic, decorative, imposing, and dominant designs. Producing monumental structures through engineering The discovery of concrete and the development of the use of arches in construction were just some of the inventions from the Roman Empire. Panel paintings were produced in tempera, a painting medium consisting of colored pigment combined with binding medium using egg yolk, and encaustic, which was burnt in. Mosaic paving in intricate geometric patterns decorated the plazas, and the people adorned themselves with cameos and metal jewelry. Coins were developed, which meant that the Roman Empire had a monetary system, and because of their quest to conquer, the evolution and improvement of armor and weapons also grew. The Roman style of design and architecture was based on examples of ancient Greece and masonry. Roman design was an evolution of previous styles and successfully combined new innovation and materials with existing design elements. As the Roman Empire conquered other civilizations, their visual style often influenced Roman design. The amphitheater was the center of entertainment in Roman times. It was a place where Roman citizens went to watch fights between gladiators and wild animals, such as bears and lions. The bloodier the battle, the more the crowd roared. The fighters were slaves or criminals whose punishment was to risk a most gruesome death. The largest amphitheater in the empire was the Colosseum. When Emperor Vespasian became the new Roman Emperor in 69 AD, he wanted everyone to know that he cared about the people and was going to take care of them and not live luxuriously like Nero had. He tore down a lot of Nero's golden house and made the land into a public park. He also used his share of the gold from the looting after the first Jewish revolt to pay for the construction of a new amphitheater where the Golden House had been. Because Vespasian's architects used the new method of building in concrete, he was able to build quickly and cheaply. We call the amphitheater the Colosseum after the giant statue of Nero that stood near it. Measuring some 620 by 513 feet, or 190 by 155 meters, the Colosseum was the largest amphitheater in the Roman world. Unlike many earlier amphitheaters, which had been dug into hillsides to provide adequate support, the Colosseum was a freestanding structure made of stone and concrete. The distinctive exterior had 3 stories of arched entrances, a total of around 80, supported by semicircular columns. This was a new development within architecture. Each story contained columns of a different order inspired by Greek architecture. At the bottom were columns of the relatively simple Doric order, followed by Ionic order, and topped by the ornate Corinthian order. This method of building showed the development not only of architecture but also of the Roman Empire. Located just near the main entrance to the Colosseum was the Arch of Constantine, built in AD 315 in honor of Constantine's victory over Maxentius at Pont Milvius. The Romans were also responsible for the Pont de Gard Bridge. The Roman civilization was powerful and focused on expansion and development. Materials like concrete made it possible to build impressive structures. As Roman cities grew and prospered, so the need for water and trade increased. Facilities in Roman cities and large towns were provided by the state. This included fresh water that often had to be transported over long distances via complex stone channels referred to as aqueducts. The water channel of an aqueduct was raised on a series of arches to ensure a downward flow of water from the source to the town. The Pont-de-Gard Bridge and Aqueduct is actually only a section of the larger ancient Roman Nimes Aqueduct in the south of France. The Nimes Aqueduct runs over 50 kilometers through mountainous areas, moving water from natural springs at the River Gardon. The Pont-de-Gard Aqueduct Bridge was constructed. It is the highest Roman aqueduct bridge, almost 50 meters high, and dates to the 1st century. The bridge has 3 tiers of arches which decrease in size from bottom to top. The precision of construction shows the high standard of Roman engineering. Today, the Pont-de-Gard is a World Heritage Site. Another example of Roman architecture is the Parthenon, known as the Temple of All Gods, and was completed in Rome in 125 AD. The domed style of the temple is characteristic of Roman building styles. The main dome temple is fronted by a portico, a porch with columns, which has 8 Corinthian columns. The dome rests on walls almost 5 meters thick and is constructed from poured concrete. The creation and weight displacement of the dome are engineered wonders. The interior of the dome has recessed square patterns which lighten the weight and add a decorative element. In the center of the dome is an opening known as the colus, a light source. This opening provides light into the temple. Along the walls of the interior are recesses called niches, a shallow recess which house the planetary gods. From the innovative light source to the indigenous drainage system within the temple, the Pantheon represents the incredible skill of Roman engineers, architects, and builders. So how does Roman architecture benefit society? Romans were known for their city planning. They created the first aqueducts for moving water. They developed concrete and poured concrete. They developed arches, stacking columns, dome-style temples, and drainage systems. They also developed panel painting and mosaic for decoration, and the first coins, which meant the Roman Empire had a monetary system. The Romanesque period. Romanesque architecture is an architectural style of medieval Europe characterized by semicircular arches. It was characterized a new massiveness of scale, expressing the increasing stability of the age and the re-emergence of European culture after 4 centuries of the Dark Ages. Despite a reduction in tension, however, a certain amount of uncertainty remained during the period 1800 to 950, which was why Romanesque designs often doubled up as defensive structures. When Charlemagne was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 800 CE, Europe began to take its first steps out of the Dark Ages since the fall of Rome in the 5th century. The remains of Roman civilization were seen all over the continent, and legends of the great empire would have been passed down through generations. So when Charlemagne wanted to unite his empire and validate his reign, he began building churches in the Roman style, particularly the style of Christian Rome in the days of Constantine, the first Christian Roman emperor. After a gap of around 200 years, with no large building projects, the architects of Charlemagne's day looked to the arched and arcaded system seen in Christian Roman edifices. as a model. It is a logical system of stresses and buttressing, which was fairly easily engineered for large structures, and it began to be used in gateways, chapels, and churches in Europe. There are different developments that happened during the Romanesque period. Semicircular arches. Most arches were semicircular, although a few buildings had pointed arches. Narrow windows or doors might be topped by a stone lintel, and large openings were nearly always arched. They made use of massively thick walls. These massive supporting walls had few and comparatively small openings, and almost eliminated the need for buttressing. Arcades. These were a particularly popular feature. An arcade consists of a row of arches supported by either columns or piers. Columns were either drum columns, if small, or hollow core, if large. Piers were typically built out of masonry and were either square or rectangular. Capitals on columns were usually of the foliate Corinthian style. Roofs. These were made from wood and then stone. Vaulted roofs generally featured barrel vaults and groin vaults made of stone or brick. Eventually these evolved into the pointed ribbed arch used in Gothic architecture. Towers. These were a regular feature of Romanesque churches. Types included square, circular, and octagonal towers. Saint-Sernin in Toulouse, France was designed by Bernard Galdouin. Saint-Sernin was built with a stone ceiling by the use of a semicircular vault with a timber roof loft. Important terms to know when looking at different churches include the transept. The transept is the part of a cruciform church whose axis crosses at the right angles and axis running from the main entrance through the nave to the apse. The nave. The nave is the part of a church between the main entrance and the choir, demarcated with aisles by piers of columns. An apse is a recess, usually singular and semicircular, in the wall at the east end of a Roman basilica or Christian church. The choir is the space reserved for the clergy in the church, usually east of the transept, but in some instances extending into the nave. The crossing is the space in a cruciform church formed by the intersection of the nave and the transept. The clerestory is the upper stage of the nave walls of a basilica or church, rising above the aisle roofs and piercing with windows. The plan of Saint-Sernin is of extreme regularity and geometric precision. The crossing square, flanked by massive piers and marked off by heavy arches, has been used as the module for the entire body of the church. In the square plan, each nave bay measures exactly 1/2, and each square in the aisle 1/4 of a crossing square, and so on throughout the building. The floor plan is also reflected in the nave walls, which are articulated by half columns that rise from the corners of each bay to the springing of the vault and are continued across the nave and transverse arches. The nave seems to be composed of numerous identical vertical volumes of space that have been placed one behind the other, continuing down the length of the building. This segmentation accentuates the geometric organization of the building plan and is also reflected in the exterior. The continuous cut stone barrel vault at St. Sernin put constant pressure along the entire length of the supporting masonry. Because of the great force exerted by the barrel vault, a clerestory window was impossible, and windows cut into the side of the vault would make it unstable. Therefore, light was very restricted. How did the Romanesque architecture benefit society? In Romanesque architecture, you can for the first time see historicism. Historicism is the incorporation of other civilization or movements, styles, and elements that are incorporated in this movement. For example, Romanesque design incorporated Roman architectural elements. For the first time, we could see circular arches within basilicas and Christian churches. They made use of thick walls for weight bearing. Arches included piers and columns and capitals. Roofs could be anything from barrel vaults, groin vaults, or pointed ribbed arch vaults. The Romanesque movement incorporated square, circular, or octagonal towers.